I was the smallest cadet at the Talon Academy, and the bully chose the human girl instead of me, and I spent a long time being ashamed of how glad I was, before I understood that her being chosen was the best thing that ever happened to any of us, and the worst thing that ever happened to the people who ran that place. I am Kessek. I am telling this because I was there in the front of it closer than anyone, and because the instructor who set it in motion has spent the years since pretending he did not understand what he was doing, and I will not let him have that. He understood. He just did not understand who he had done it to. You have to know what the Talon Academy was, and what a Kessek is inside a place like that, or you will not feel the shape of it. The Drevn run the Talon Academy, and the Drevn are warriors, a tall, hard-crested people, fast and strong and proud, the kind of species that claws its way up out of a brutal world and never quite stops believing the world is still brutal and still owes them a fight. Their whole culture is the proving. That is the word, the doctrine, the thing they live by. That worth is shown only in dominance, that a person is exactly as valuable as the harm they can do and endure, that the weak are weak because they have failed to become strong and therefore deserve whatever the strong do to them. The Talon Academy is where the Drevn train the next generation of officers for their fleets, and they take in a few cadets from client species too, the smaller peoples in their sphere, partly as a courtesy and partly, this is never said but everyone knows it, as practice. As prey. You learn to be a predator by having something to practice on, and the small client cadets are the something. I am the something. The Kessek are a soft people, low and round and slow, gatherers from a gentle world, and we joined the Drevn sphere generations ago for protection, and we pay for the protection in 100 quiet ways, and one of them is that a few of our young are sent to the Talon Academy every cycle to be, mostly, hurt. We do not last. Kessek cadets wash out, or break, or in 2 cases I knew of, did not come home, and our families receive a letter about the honor of the attempt and we do not talk about it. I was 3 months from washing out myself. I had learned the only Kessek survival skill the Academy teaches, which is to be invisible, to take up no space, to never be the most noticeable small thing in the room, because the bully always chooses the most noticeable small thing, and the bully's name was Koruth, and Koruth was the worst of them. Koruth was a Drevn cadet of a high family, big even for a Drevn, and gifted, genuinely gifted at the only things the Academy valued, and cruel in the specific bored way of someone who has never once been made to feel small and cannot imagine it, and so does not believe smallness is real, believes it is a performance the weak put on to manipulate the strong. Koruth ran the proving among the cadets the way the instructors ran it from above, an unofficial second curriculum of dominance, and Koruth chose, every cycle, one small cadet to make an example of, to break slowly in front of everyone as a demonstration of the natural order. The cycle before, it had been a Tessie cadet who left. This cycle, I had spent 3 months being invisible specifically so that it would not be me, and I am not proud of that, but I was 3 months from going home alive and I wanted to go home alive, and so I made myself small, and I watched Koruth's attention slide over me looking for prey, and I prayed every day that it would land on someone else. And then the human came, and it landed on her. Her name was Ren Brandt, and she was the first human cadet the Talon Academy had ever taken, an exchange placement, part of some agreement between the Drevn and the new human polity that nobody at the cadet level understood. She arrived mid-cycle alone into a place built to grind down the small and strange, and she was small, not Kessek small, but small for the Academy, a head shorter than the Drevn, soft-skinned, slow-looking, the way humans look slow until they are not. She did not know how to be invisible. That was the first thing. She had no idea of the survival skill. She walked into the mess hall on her first day and looked around with open, friendly human curiosity and met everyone's eyes, which among the Drevn is a challenge, and sat down wherever she liked, and asked people their names, and was, In every way, the most noticeable new small thing the Academy had seen in years. I watched her and I felt two things so strongly I am ashamed of both. I felt pity because I knew what she had just done to herself. And I felt under the pity a flood of pure relief because I knew, watching Koruth's head turn toward her across the mess hall, that I was safe. The bully had found new prey. It would not be me this cycle. It would be the human. I want to be honest about that relief, because it is the floor of this whole story. I was glad. A new person, a stranger who had been kind to me in the first hour by asking my name when no one asked a Kessek's name, was about to be made the cycle's example, broken slowly in front of everyone, and my first and strongest feeling was gladness that it was her and not me. That is what the proving does. That is what a place like the Talon Academy makes of you, even the gentle, even the prey. It makes you grateful when the predator turns toward someone else. I have carried that gladness for a long time. It is the thing Wren Brandt eventually took out of me, though she never knew she did it, and the taking out was the kindest violence I have ever witnessed. You should know what 3 months of being prey does, so the gladness makes sense, and so you do not judge me too quickly for it, or if you judge me, judge the place. By the time the human came, I had stopped eating in the main mess and started taking my food in a maintenance alcove, because the mess was where Koruth and the others were bored and looking, and a Kessek alone with a tray is a tempting small thing. I had learned the routes through the academy that no one used. I had learned to read the particular set of a Drevn's crest that meant a corridor was about to become dangerous, and to be elsewhere before it did. I had learned to make the soft Kessek sounds of submission instantly and without thinking, the duck of the head, the lowered eyes, the going. Still, that signals I am no contest. I am not worth your time, because that going still was sometimes enough to make a predator lose interest, and the times it was not enough I had learned to absorb what came and make myself smaller and wait for it to be over. I was very good at all of it. I was, you understand, an excellent victim. 3 months had made me an expert in the one skill the Talon Academy actually taught its small cadets, which was how to be hurt with the least fuss. And I hated myself for the expertise even as it kept me alive, and I did not yet know there was any other way to be, because every model of strength I had ever seen was the proving, and in the proving there are only 2 roles, and I knew which one was mine. Wren Brandt did not seem to know there were roles at all. That was the strangeness of her from the first hour. I met her on her first day because she found me, in my alcove, the routes that no one used apparently not unknown to a curious human, and she sat down across from me uninvited with her own tray and looked at me with those flat-fronted human eyes and asked my name. I gave the submission stillness on reflex, the head duck, the going small, the signal that I was no contest and not worth her time, and she just waited patiently as though she had not seen it or had seen it and found it beside the point, and asked again, gently, what I was called. And I told her. And she said it back, my name, getting the soft Kessek vowels wrong and then asking me to correct her, and trying again until she had it, a thing no Drevn had done in 3 months, a thing no Drevn would ever do, because to learn a prey creature's name correctly is to admit the prey creature is a person, and the whole architecture of that place depended on us not being persons. She learned my name on her first day. I did not understand why. I thought in my praise mind that she simply did not yet know what I was, that she would learn, that the academy would teach her which of us mattered, and that her kindness was only ignorance that had not worn off yet. I was wrong about that, the way I was wrong about everything until the afternoon in the pit. Her kindness was not ignorance. It was the most informed thing about her. She knew exactly what the place thought I was. She had simply arrived already certain it was wrong, and nothing the Talon Academy did to her in the weeks that followed ever shook that certainty, because it did not come from the academy, and the academy therefore had no purchase on it. Koruth chose her within the week. It started the way it always started, the small tests, the shoulder checks in the corridor that were too hard to be accidents, the food knocked from the tray, the comments pitched to Carrie, the steady public probing to find where the new prey was soft. And the human did not respond the way prey responds, and that was the first thing that unsettled the cohort, weeks before the pit, in the small daily ways that no one could quite point to. When Koruth shoulder-checked her in the corridor, the hard hit that is supposed to stagger you, to make you flinch and shrink and confirm the order of things, she did not stagger. She rode it, the way I would later see her ride the strikes in the ring, a small give in the body that turned the force aside, and she kept walking, and she did not look back, and she did not look afraid, and she did not look like she was refusing to look afraid either, which is its own tell that prey gives off. She just kept walking, as though a wall had bumped into her and the wall's feelings were not her concern. When Koruth knocked her tray from her hands in the mess in front of everyone, the moment built for the public flinch. She looked at the food on the floor, and then she looked at Koruth, and she said something. I was too far to hear it, but I saw Koruth's crest go up, the anger set, because whatever she said was not a plea and was not a challenge. It was something else, something that did not fit either slot the proving allows, and Koruth did not know what to do with a response that was neither submission nor defiance, and so just stood there while she picked up her tray and went to get more food, unhurried. And the watching cadets did the small, uncertain shift of a crowd that came to see a thing happen, and watched it not happen. I asked her about it once in the alcove, because I could not understand her and it frightened me. I asked why she did not just give Koruth the flinch, the small submission, and be left alone, which is what I would have done, which is what I had been doing for 3 months, the going, still that makes the predator bored. And she thought about it, chewing, taking my question seriously the way she took everything, and she said, "Because that's the deal he's offering, right? Flinch, and I get to be safe. And the price is I agree that he's allowed to make me flinch. I agree to the whole thing, that he's up here and I'm down there, and that's just how it is." She shrugged. "I'm not going to fight him over it. Fighting him says the same thing, just louder. It says his game is the game, that the way to settle who matters is who can hurt who. I'm just not going to play. I'm going to keep getting my lunch." She looked at me then, and there was something careful in it. "You could keep getting your lunch too, in the mess, with me, if you wanted." I did not then. I want to be honest about that. I was too afraid, and her invitation felt like a door into a room where the worst things happened, and I went back to my alcove and my invisibility and my excellent victimhood, and I let her sit alone in the mess being not prey, and I watched from a distance as the not playing drove Koruth slowly out of his mind, because a bully needs the victim's participation and she would not give it, and a hunt that the prey refuses to be frightened by stops being a demonstration and starts being an embarrassment. By the 3rd week the cohort had begun, very quietly, to watch Koruth instead of the human, which is the one thing a predator of the proving cannot survive, the watching turning the wrong way, and I understood, even I, small and afraid, that this could not go on, that Koruth would have to do something large and final to put the order back, and that the instructors would let him, because the order was theirs too. And the chief of them, the combat master who oversaw our cohort, a Drevn named Instructor Valor, cold, precise, a believer, the purest believer in the proving I ever met, watched Koruth begin to lose his grip on the human girl, and did the thing that the title of this account turns on, the thing he has spent years pretending was something else. He did not stop it. He encouraged it. He saw a new small strange cadet who would not learn her place by the slow informal route, and a strong cadet being quietly unmade by her refusal, and he decided to settle it the formal way, to give Koruth the ground and the rules and the public stage on which the human's refusal could not save her, where she would have to either fight or fall, and either way be put back where the doctrine said she belonged. He arranged, in the small ways an instructor can, for it to happen in the open, formally, in the training hall, where everyone would see. He chose the ground and the moment. He gift-wrapped the human girl for his best young predator, and he did it on purpose, and he thought he understood exactly what he was doing. He had no idea what Rembrandt was. None of us did. I was closer to her than anyone by then. She had kept asking my name, kept sitting with me, kept treating the invisible Kessek as a person, which I found almost unbearable, and even I did not know. I only knew she was kind and did not seem afraid, and that Koruth was going to hurt her in front of everyone, and that Instructor Valor was going to let it happen, was making it happen, and that there was nothing the smallest cadet at the Talon Academy could do about any of it except what I had been doing all cycle, which was watch and be small and be quietly, shamefully glad it was not me. She let him go, and she stood up off him, and she stepped back, and she left Koruth alive on the floor of the pit, and the leaving alive was louder than any killing could have been, because every Drevn in that hall had just felt, in their own bones, the certainty that she could have done otherwise, and a mercy you know to be a choice lands very differently from a mercy you can dismiss as weakness. And then she did the thing that I did not understand until much later was the entire point, the thing she had walked into that pit to do. She did not address the warriors. She did not claim her victory or make Koruth grovel or turn the proving's cruelty back on the strong, which is what I, in my Kessek smallness, had wanted, which would have been just, and which would have changed nothing, because it would only have proven the doctrine again with the players swapped strong on the bottom now, but still the same world, still a world where the one who can dominate does. She did none of that. She turned her back on Koruth entirely, as though he had stopped being interesting the moment he stopped being a threat, and she walked bleeding across the pit, and she climbed up into the tiers, to the lowest seats where the client cadets sat, where the small ones sat, where I sat, and she stopped in front of me, the smallest, the prey, the one who had been so shamefully glad it was her and not me, and she put out a hand, the same hand that had just held Koruth's life. And she helped me to my feet in front of the whole watching academy, and she said, quietly, in front of 400 warriors, the thing that broke the proving forever. You were never the weak one. You were just the one they hadn't given a reason to stop being afraid yet. Come on. Stand up. I have thought about why that was the thing that did it, why that sentence and not the throat hold was the real lesson, and I think it is this. The throat hold proved she was strong. The Drevn already had a category for strong. They would have absorbed a strong human the way they absorbed everything, slotted her into the proving as a new apex predator and gone on exactly as before, the doctrine intact, only the rankings changed. But what she did after, turning from the defeated strong to lift up the despised weak, spending the awe she had just earned not on dominance but on the smallest creature in the room, that the Drevn had no category for at all, because, in the entire logic of the proving, it was impossible. It was a being of proven dominance choosing, in the same breath, to value the one with none. It said the thing the proving exists to deny. That strength is not for ranking the people beneath you. That strength, real strength, the death world kind that could have closed its hand on Koruth's life, is for reaching down and pulling the small one up. She had the whole hall's terrified respect, and she spent every bit of it instantly on a Kessek, and there was no place in 4,000 years of Drevn doctrine to put that. And so it broke the doctrine, quietly, the way a single true thing breaks a long lie, not by arguing with it, but by simply existing where the lie said nothing could. Instructor Valor understood last and most completely, and that is the part the title is about, the part he has spent the years since pretending away. He had arranged the bout. He had chosen a human he believed was prey and gift-wrapped her for his best predator to break, as a demonstration of the proving, and he had thought with his cold, pure belief that he understood exactly what he was orchestrating. And he watched it invert in his pit in front of his cohort, and I was watching his face. I had stopped being able to look away from his face, and I saw the realization arrive in him in stages, the way a structure fails, the small cracks, and then the sudden whole collapse. First, when she took Koruth, the realization that he had badly misjudged the human's capacity, that he had handed his best cadet a creature that could kill him. That was just tactics. He could have survived that, learned from it, folded it into the proving. But then she let Koruth live and lifted the Kessek, and Vaylor's face went through something worse, and I understood that he had realized the larger thing, the thing too late to take back, that he had spent his whole life and built his whole authority and bent 400 cadets a cycle, on a model of strength that a soft, slow exchange student had just disproven in 30 seconds in front of all of them. That everything he had ever taught about who was weak and who was strong and who deserved what, the entire architecture of the proving, the thing he was the purest believer in, was wrong, was a small thing pretending to be a law, and that he had just, with his own careful orchestration, arranged the perfect public demonstration of its wrongness. He had wanted to show the cohort the natural order. He had instead handed Ren Brandt the ideal stage on which to break it, and he could not now unshow what every cadet in that hall had seen. That is the what he'd done, and the too late. He had not realized too late that he'd nearly gotten a cadet killed, though he had. He had realized too late that he himself had staged the death of the proving, that in choosing the human girl as the victim, he had chosen the one being in the galaxy who would respond to cruelty not by submitting to it and not by answering it with worse cruelty, but by exposing, in one clean motion, that the whole game was a lie, and that the strong had always been free to lift the weak instead of grinding them, and had simply chosen not to, cycle after cycle, and called the choosing a law of nature. The proving did not survive Ren Brandt's year at the Talon Academy. Not because she fought it, she never fought it again, never needed to, the one bout was enough. It died the way these things die slowly in the watching cadets, because 400 young Drevn had seen, with their own eyes, the strongest one in the room choose the smallest one, and you cannot make a young person unsee that, cannot make them believe afterward that the lifting up they witnessed was weakness, not when it had come attached to a grip that could have ended their best. She had made mercy legible to a warrior people by making it impossible to mistake for the inability to do otherwise. That was the only language they could have heard it in, and she spoke it fluently, with her hands around Koruth's throat and then open, helping a Kessek stand. Koruth, for what it is worth, did not become a better person quickly, or perhaps at all. The brief shaming did not redeem him, and I will not pretend it did, because that is not how people work, and Ren would have hated the lie. He was sullen and dangerous for the rest of the cycle, and he hated her, and she let him hate her, and she watched him, and he never chose a small cadet again, not from goodness, but because the one time he had, it had cost him everything in front of everyone, and that is its own kind of justice, the only kind some people ever submit to. But the other cadets, the watching ones, the young ones not yet hardened all the way into the proving, some of them changed. Some of them started quietly to do the impossible thing, to sit with the client cadets, to lift instead of grind, because the strongest cadet any of them had ever seen had made it, suddenly, not shameful. That is how it spreads, not through the bully, through the witnesses. I went home alive at the end, which Kessek cadets mostly do not. And I am not invisible anymore anywhere, which is the gift she gave me without ever quite saying she was giving it, when she put out the hand that had held Koruth's life and used it to pull a small, frightened gatherer to his feet and told him he had never been the weak one. I think about her at the strangest times. I think about the second in the pit when she could have closed her hands, and how badly I, the gentle one, the prey, wanted her to, and how she did not, and how the not doing was harder and stronger and more frightening to that whole hall of warriors than the doing could ever have been. They built a school to teach that strength is the capacity to break the weak. A human girl bled in their pit for an afternoon to teach them what it actually is, and the instructor who chose her for the breaking realized, too late, that he had invited into his temple the one student in the galaxy who could not be broken and would not break anyone, and that there is nothing, that frightens a people built on cruelty more than the proof, bleeding and smiling and holding out its hand, that the strong were always free to be kind.